So, you have a Grim, and it needs Grim pages to function, but you don't want to pay for said Grim pages. Well, do I have something for you? Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, main hand Blightbound Crossbows, welcome to the channel and welcome to another guide. This guide is going to kick off a mini stint of updating all of my older guides that need to be updated either from lack of quality or because of the FSOA change, which happened about a week ago at the time of recording. So in the next couple weeks you will see quite a few guides released as I make them, pertaining to Magic Camp and how it now works at bosses. Now that I've gotten the time to play with it for a little bit, I pretty much have some base rotations that I'm using to find some form of consistency at these bosses, and so I think it is time to make a guide. And in these guides I'm going to try a little bit more of a streamlined format to make things a little bit simpler and quicker, so not only that they are quicker to make and produce and get out to y'all, but hopefully are a little bit easier for you to follow along with. So first, we'll just do a little bit of discussion about the preset itself. Not too much has changed from the old guide. I just have my normal rune pouch and armor and weapon setup. The main change here is the Channeler's Ring, with G-Conk being so prevalent now in FSOA rotations, even more so than before. The Channeler's Ring is really going to help out here, because as it states in the name and here in the set effect, it really gives a good crit buff for any channeled ability. So this is for G-Conk, for Tendies, for Asphyx, and it will really help churn out the crits. Now you will lose out a little bit of crit chance on Omni Power and Wild Magic, but it's not too big of a deal, because now with FSOA being that it's ability based damage and it's just going to do what it's going to do, we don't have to worry about equipping the staff anymore. Now the armor just kind of has standard perks on here: C4, R5, Imp 4, Devoted 4, Biting 4, Hoarding. This is an old setup. I haven't replaced Hoarding on my gear. This is from the before the Death rework. And you may notice Invigorating is still on here, and that is because we can now 4-tick again inside of our rotations. And the extra adrenaline on these autos is always nice, so I would recommend keeping it on there. If you're someone who does not want to 4-tick, I do recommend that you learn it. It is a good skill set to have, and it might springboard you into learning full manual as well. So feel free to give it a shot. If not though, then I would say just put something like Enhanced Devoted 4, or if you have any other combo perks you might want to put in here, feel free to use that as well. I'll leave a link in the description below to the wiki page that has all of the perk combos for all of the gear and whatnot possible, so feel to use that as a reference as you need. Now Blast Diffusion boots have always been best in slot, but they haven't really been used in kind of the past year, but now they're making a strong comeback because we can now start using Detonate inside of our Sun rotations again. Detonate is a very strong ability, and you can combo it with a staff auto attack into any other ability on your bar, so it is very worthwhile to bring back into rotations. Cinderbane gloves are pretty self-explanatory. The poison damage is always welcomed, and obviously we still want crit chance, so we're going to be using a Grim here. And the benefit of doing solo Solak with the Grim is that it does not consume any charge. The Zuck Cape, I just have the hybrid one. If you just have the standard magic Zuck Cape, that will work as well. Now yes, I still have an Armital Battle Staff here. I don't really use it at all. It's just kind of set there in the preset. I don't really have anything to replace it with. I don't really need any more food or any other items that I can think of. Although maybe I could bring an SGB swap. Maybe in the future I'll make an update talking about bringing SGB swap, or if ABS gets reworked in some way to where it's actually usable now, but overall it just kind of sets there for no real reason. If you're putting a preset together and you don't have an ABS EOF, then you could just add another Portent. Speaking of Portents, these heal 2300 HP automatically once you go below half life points. They do have a cooldown, but ever since Bladed Dive was removed and we don't need a Bladed Dive swap anymore, I've always just brought 2 with me, and it's nice because it's food you don't have to think about using. They just automatically proc. There is a cooldown, so you can't be too reliant on them, but honestly they are very handy to bring along. As far as food is concerned, I just use Super Brews and Blue Blubbers. This is kind of standard practice for Solak. Some people go off the walls and will use Super Guth Express. That works as well if you're very comfortable with your food usage. However, with the lack of blood auto healing from the new FSOA spec, I will just stick with Super Brews to keep things simple. I also do have an Inquisitor staff here, it is quite helpful for the extra damage that it brings, being that with the enchantment, it is technically a tier 104.8 or something like that. I just say tier 105 to keep it easy, but it is a very, very strong weapon, and if you have it, I would suggest bringing it, and if you have the enchantment, then it is even stronger. The Vet Pod is just, for phase 1, I just use it to tank the circle, and for phase 2, if I get some pretty unfavorable bomb patterns, then I'll just use it for that, maybe in conjunction with Debilitate to really help out on damage reduction. Tier 90 Shield is just there for reses as I need them, and Blessed Flask is here instead of Spirituals just because I'll be using a Calg Demon. If you're in a group and there is one person using a Calg, most of the time you're going to get the Calg effect anyway from them, so you can bring a Ripper Demon, but since this is a solo guide, no one's going to be doing a Calg spec for us, so we got to bring our own. And last but not least, the Combat Dummy in the preset is here for phase 4. When we come out of the elf from the 1 cycle, we're going to be on kind of low adrenaline, so you can place a Combat Dummy for the few seconds before Solak becomes attackable to help build up adrenaline and get a Sunshine out for phase 4. Other than that, I'll just do a quick hover over on my rune pouches so you can see how they're set up. Feel free to pause the video if you need, and yes, for the eagle-eyed out there, I will be filling these up before we start the kill. Now, as far as aura selection is concerned, I will pretty much just be using Maniacal all the time at Solak. Sometimes, if I want to save on aura refreshes, I might pop Majorat. If you're concerned about damage intake, then Majorat is definitely a solid option compared to Maniacal, especially if you're trying to learn. Or maybe you could even go and use something like Invigorate. Although with the current setup with Magic and no real true adren dumps out there, Magic is quite an adrenaline surplus heavy style, meaning that you're pretty much on high adrenaline most of the time, so Invigorate might be a little bit wasted here. So honestly, if you're learning, I would probably just stick to Majorat. If you don't have that, Mani is going to work just fine, or maybe even something like, I don't know, Dark Magic for some extra damage. But typically speaking, Mani and Majorat are the two top tier auras for Solak, at least with using just Magic Camp. Now, as far as relics and other setup are concerned, I usually just run the Zerk Fury Font of Life setup to try and get some extra damage out, because I'm usually on like 5 HP anyway, so I might as well take advantage of that. However, if you're going for your first couple solos, I would recommend going with Fury of the Small and Death Ward. Death Ward doesn't sound like too much of a damage reduction, but it is very helpful when you're on lower HP, as it kind of takes the edge off of some of the auto attacks that Solak has to offer. And the mainstay here between either of these two relic setups is Conservation of Energy. It is still best in slot for magic use. And of course, I'm on the Ancient Spellbook. That is the main staple for using magic, as you want access to Insight Fear and Exsanguinate. And also Blood Autos when 4-ticking are very nice for the little heals that they offer. And as far as anything else in my banking preset is concerned, I use all of the incense sticks, which are Quarm, Lantidime, and Spirit Weed. I do go ahead and use Penance Powder as well as an Ogre Flask with the Thermal Bath inside of it. And other than that, the potions here are Elder Overload Salve, Weapon Poison, Triple Plus, and Summoning Renewal. Honestly, when you're using Calg, Summoning Renewal is kind of lost on it. You don't really need to worry about it because you're not spamming a Ripper Demon or using a Blood Reaver to heal you. You're just kind of using a Calg spec every minute and it's going to recharge on its own, so honestly you could skip the Summoning Renewal and be just fine. Well, I think that's enough rambling about the preset and whatnot. Let's go ahead and get into an actual example kill. Alrighty, we have our preset loaded up and ready to go, so let's go ahead and get our prayers up and get into the instance. Hit start. Mines don't work in solo on the roots, so don't have to worry about those. Make sure our Grim's on. Surge Blade to dive over, and then what I like to do here is just hit Calc Spec and Reprisal, Vuln Bomb with Sun, and start the boss. And I'll usually just hit 3 abilities, then Auto Nami, FSOA Spec, swap to Exsanguinate and go for a Wild Magic, Auto Asphyx, G-Conk into a Detonate Charge, Auto Detonate Omni, to a G-Staff, and then just G-Conk here. Disrupt Shield to that hit, and then maybe do like Auto Tendrils with Inquisitor on. With Wild Magic, and I'll just hit the Asphyx key. Let it carry itself out. And we'll just do some thresholding here. Maybe use our Rack and Ruin to get a big combust going. Here, we'll toss our Omni Power. And that's him phased. Now we just start killing roots. Ice Rack is really nice for taking out roots, and if they're on really low HP, they should die to poison. Most of the time they do. And here I'll just hit a Bleed and a G-Conk. And then sometimes I'll just leave those two over on the west side kind of alive. And just go for a Natural Instinct here. And just build up per usual. Maybe go for an Ice Rack. Then we'll just Sun. G-Conk. Ability. Wild Magic is cutting it a little bit close. But it was fine. That one didn't die, so I'll target the other leg. Charge a Detonate. Release with Tsunami. Use FSOA spec on the other leg. Just kind of go from here. Go for a G-Conk into a Wild Magic. Inquisitor does work on the core, so you can use it. Attendees. Into an Omni Power, and it should be dead. Got a little bit of HP left. Here we can just kill the Lashers. And here I like to save an Asphyxiate for the southeast one, or southwest one I should say. And I didn't kill it quite quick enough to go kill the other one before going up, so I'll just do this. Go up the one time, and then I'll just go for a semi-skip, where you just go up once and then leave it alive till about the end of phase 3. And we can just threshold these down. And here you can actually Devotion and get it extended with these two northern eruptions, so it is kind of nice. Just use some basic abilities. I just used Omni over the one on the northeast. Snag a res. Smoke Cloud into a Sun. We have our A-Pot here. Grab our third basic. Auto Nami. FSOA spec. Kind of rinse repeat from phase 1. G-Conk. Into a Wild Magic. Auto Sphyx. And on the third one, I like to G-Conk, charge Dedo, Auto Dedo Omni, into Attendees. And here's where I like to use Vitpod in case I get a bad bomb spawn like that one. G-Conk into a Wild Magic, and then Auto Asphyx again until the spec runs out. The second Asphyx I usually just let play out all the way, because like Sun's over, so it doesn't matter too much. Run from that bomb, because that would have KO'd us. And then I'll just usually Thresh from this point on. Maybe toss an Omni. And then res the first bomb hit. Devotion. And what you can do here is hit Debil. And that'll help out on the bomb hits. And when you don't see a bomb, you'll get an auto, and I just like to run out, so that way he has space for his arm. And just run up the roots. I haven't really seen too many arm skips, but I'm sure it's fine and doable. But I'll just Threshold here. And this hit, I'll just Disrupt Shield. And I'll just keep threshing until the start of phase 3. We already have our Insight stacks built up, so we could probably just do a 4 ultimate. Or not a 4, yeah, a 4 hit, basically. So we can just immediately Auto Nami. Didn't quite get the Adren there, but just FSOA spec and G-Conk. Into a basic. Auto Wild. Sphyx. G-Conk into a Detonate Charge. Auto Detonate Omni, kind of just rinse and repeat the usual rotations. I forgot to Smoke Cloud, so didn't get the 16-8 there, but you know, it happens. G-Conk into a G-Staff. Auto Wild into a Sphyx. I forgot to anticipate, so I'll get stunned here. But then I'll just run over to the next one, and he's on 330. We should be able to get this. Just hit another Omni Power because we can. And maybe hit a G-Conk and a D-Breath. And a Rack, and we'll go in. Whip the staff. Use Wild Magic as fix. Into a G-Conk. Charge Detonate. Release with a D-Breath. Into a G-Staff. Auto G-Conk into another G-Staff. You can usually get one out just before you leave or as you're leaving. And then just use your dummy to build a Dren here. Make sure he's vulned. Toss down the Sun with A-Pot. Nami. Hit an ability so we can FSOA spec and just kind of follow the same rotation as usual. We'll go Auto Wild into his fix. And then I'll hit Omni Power into Tendies, and that should usually get him. If you don't quite get it after the Tendrils there, then you can go ahead and hit G-Staff. I did the input for it, but he was already dead. And that's kind of just a typical Solak kill with current Magic Camp. Sub 7 is kind of what I aim for at this point. I haven't really gotten close to my old PBs. My old PB before the rework was a 612 with Magic Camp. And so far, the fastest I have seen is around the 640 mark. I might have had one in the 630s with some good RNG, but I'm still playing with rotations here. These are not set in stone. These are just what I have tried so far that seem to work for me. And as you can tell, food usage is up quite a bit from what it used to be. We don't have blood auto healing anymore, so I've used 2 and a bit of brews and a decent amount of my blubbers, but that's what the food is there for. It's there to be consumed so we don't die. Now, one last little tip here I have is in your bank preset, I would just put Luck of the Dwarves in here and have it filled up. So what you can do is surge over, go through the portal, and then claim your loot. And it automatically goes to the bank because your inventory was full, so you can then just teleport, potion up, and then rinse and repeat. You know, hit the altar, grab your preset, go to the adrenaline crystal, and you're off to start your next kill. Also, don't forget to go back to Insight Fear before you start your next kill, or else you'll be very sad and have to teleport out. Although the one thing I do need to mention is that route skip doesn't feel 100% consistent. Sometimes I just get bad RNG and it's not quite in the cards. 500k damage is nothing to sneeze at. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but that rotation has been giving it to me about 60 to 70%. I'll go with 60% of the time. And when I do get a route skip, I typically will go for a semi-storm skip. Although honestly, if I miss the route skip, I usually will just go up again on the southeast erupt and kind of just do a very casual laid back kill. Although if you're worried about doing kills per hour, always going for semi-storm skip will help save a couple of seconds here and there. I think on average it saves about 10, not going up twice, but you do take damage from the storm all the way till the arm climb. So I'm not sure exactly what causes it, but sometimes the storm hits will not line up properly and your res will get sniped if you res the first one, so just keep that in mind. Also, sometimes P3 the damage doesn't work out too nicely, and so sometimes I'll do a third circle and just go in on that one. But I usually will go for the one cycle on Erithor, because when you go in, Solak is most likely going to go and start automatically charging up another pad, usually on the east or southeast side of the arena. And so if you miss the one cycle on Erithor, it's not the biggest deal in the world. You just go over and charge up at whichever pad he was charging up himself while you were fighting Erithor and just finish him off afterwards. Although usually you can get a last second G-Staff out or Wild Magic or something and the damage will still be applied even when you're in the main boss arena again. Anyways though, thank you very much for watching. Your viewership is greatly appreciated. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace!